A pleasure to welcome in Guy Holliday, former wide receiver coach at BYU. Coach, first of all, great to see you, sir. I appreciate you joining the show. What are your thoughts when you hear this situation about this young woman from Duke being abused because, frankly, she was black, and you hear Tom Homo's words on Saturday after that happened? What is your reaction to that?
Well, obviously, I know Tom Homo well. Knew him before I came to BYU, and I do know he hurts deep inside. I mean, some of Tom Homo's closest friends are people of the nature of Ronnie Lott. I know him and Ronnie are super close. Ronnie came back he came up to BYU when I was there. Um, it hurts me. It doesn't surprise me, and I'm not saying that because it's at BYU. Let's get that squared away. My time at BYU, I never had an incident. I never had anything remotely close to that. But what I am saying is that we're in a dangerous place in our country right now, where it is just popular to say whatever the hell you want to say, and that's the way it is. And I think it started with a political sector being, leading our country through name calling. And regardless of what your political views are, there's just a certain way, if you're a politician or if you're a professional, that you carried yourself, and you didn't allow it to become personal. Now everything is so personal. And so it's disappointing. But let's not bury our heads in the sand, as people, as my mother would say back when I was a kid. And we've had incidents at the Utah Jazz game. We've had incidents, obviously, up in Davis County. We've had these incidents that are going on, and quite frankly, the thing that is very frightening for me, it used to be the older generation, my generation, where the ignorance was prevalent. Now it's the younger generation, and that's very frightening because you made a valid point. Racism is taught. You don't grow up being a racist. You're taught to be a racist, and that's what's so unfortunate. And in a university like University of Utah, where I believe, and I don't know the exact statistic, but I believe that the minority population as a whole is 1%. You can easily, in an environment of that nature, find people like you that believe like you. And it was 78, I believe it is, when the church said that African Americans or people of color, and I don't know the exact rules, whether it was African American or black people, African,
Right.
I don't know, were allowed to gather or gain the priesthood in the church. And so we're talking about less than 30 years ago. So there's still going to be sentiments, whether it's right or wrong. They're not going to be accepting of that. For a young lady to come into an arena, and my times of being the 3 times that word has been said to me, 2 of them have been in athletics. It's unfortunate. One at a rivalry game in the South, and it really caught me off guard going off the field. That was my first. And then another one as an athlete, hearing it, and and I've heard, oh, why didn't they stop play? Because you're taught as an athlete, you play the game, and you hear a lot of things. That word is obviously one of the most repulsive things that you can hear. But man, I've heard a lot of things that are quite frankly disrespectful, and you learn to take it. I just think that when you cross the line, and let's obviously the line was crossed. Where I'm more disappointed is the fans should have been removed during the game. I think I get it that you pay a price and you give it. You still don't get to say whatever the hell you want to say to people. You
Yeah.
don't get to demean people. And I get all the arguments about, oh, the word is used in cultural means and it's accepted. I'm not for the word period. I want to get that squared away. But just because somebody else uses it, you know damn well it's wrong. Okay,
Yes.
you know it's
Yes.
offensive, and you're using it in an offensive manner. If you call me boy, I know what the word boy means in my childhood. I know when you're referred to that. Yeah, my mother can say, boy, you better get up and do something. And as a grown
Right.
man, if she said it, I would still respect the fact that she's my mother. But just walking down the street and the guy calls me a boy, and you know the context that the word is being used in, um, I'm just really disappointed. I, I I'm I'm speechless. I just can't imagine a college student or saying that. It just blows my mind. But
Yeah.
the underbelly in our society is there. The underbelly is on every campus. The thing, one of the reasons why we can't accomplish anything, and you hit on it, is because we refuse to acknowledge it. We refuse to talk about it. We always want to push it away. Oh, this was an isolated incident. Or and what always bothered me about the BYU Utah rivalry, if something oh, that's just a Ute. That's a Ute. That's how a Ute would do. And
Yeah.
now that
Yes.
we have it at BYU's campus, oh, that's just the Mormon church. That's what they believe. Hell no. It's not about BYU Utah. It's about people. It's about, yeah, there's some, excuse my language, some sick asses in the Mormon church. There's some sick asses in the Catholic church. There's some sick asses in that go to University of Utah. There's some that go to BYU. There's some that go to Weber State. There's some that go to UVU. It's not an
Yeah.
institutional problem. It is a problem within us, and we refuse to acknowledge it. We refuse to talk about it. I'm not a Twitter fiend, but I've read the comments after the young lady's grandmother or godmother, whatever she was, came out, and I read some of those comments. I don't believe it happened. I need video proof. Now, why would a person from North Carolina, and some suggested she's running for office, it was political. Like, guys, come on, get over yourselves. They're not, it's not because she was at BYU and they have something against. Trust me, a student at Duke could care less about BYU. And I know that may piss some people off. A student at Duke could care less about University of Utah. Heck, a student at Duke could care less about the University of Southern California. A student at Duke, if they're going to victimize somebody, it's going to be at it's going to be at Wake Forest, or if they play Winston-Salem State, or if they play North Carolina, or if they play North Carolina A&T. Get over yourselves.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to victimize your university. This is something that's wrong. This is something that is going to continue if we don't have open dialogue. Just look at where we are as in a country right now, and the things that we're saying. I mean, I read an article, and I know some people don't consider the Salt Lake Tribune a credible source, but I read an article where parents said a young lady competing in a competition looked too masculine. Are you kidding me? Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? How can you, as a parent, do that just because your child got beat? So now the
Yeah.
other young lady has to. Let's stop. I get all the other arguments. I understand transgender competing. Those are, but to just come out and say, "Oh, she looked too masculine," God, we got to get over ourselves, and we got to get to a point where we can sit down at the table and talk and talk. And I know BYU has an African American student population or group that they recorded some things, posted them, and people didn't watch or didn't hear the honest responses from some of these young kids, and they're being taught and they're being led by us. This is on us as adults. Those are still kids. I mean, at 22, and I know maybe everybody that was fully grown at 22, or maybe they went on a mission and they had, and they feel like, no, they're 22, guys.
Yeah.
They're still going to make stupid mistakes,
Yeah.
and they're still under the influence of their parents. Like,
That's awesome.
we have to come to grips and take hold. I mean, at 22, you, you still learning how to wipe your butt clean. I mean, come on, let's be real.
True.
You're still wet behind the ears. Like, we don't want to hold anybody to a standard, and if it's not in our favor, then it's wrong. That's
Yeah.
what kills me about the media now. Whether it's CNN, whether it's freaking Fox, whether it's MSN, or what, I can't even watch it anymore because it's all has a spin on it. Instead of reporting the freaking news, stop having a freaking opinion. Let people have opinions of their own.
Yeah.
And until we come together and be able to sit down at a university such as BYU, where the average test score to get in, we all know is well above 20, and we know that the GPA is well above 3.5 for the average everyday student. There's students turned down every day who want to get in that are LDS. We can't correct this problem amongst the educated, amongst what we think are the future leaders of the LDS church, amongst what we think are the future leaders, and amongst the state of Utah, amongst what we think are the future leaders in this country to lead Fortune 500 companies or startups or whatever it may be. We can't fix it there. Then where can we fix it?
Coach Guy Holliday joins us on the Monty Show as we talk about this situation with BYU volleyball versus Duke the other night. And, Coach, I wonder, in your experience, you said a minute ago that you never had an issue like this personally when you were in BYU. But talk me through your experience. What was it like in Provo? I mean, obviously, you're a very strong personality. Obviously, you're somebody that was involved in the football program as a wide receiver coach. So what was life like for you as a black man in Provo, working in Provo?
Well, and see, it's very interesting. Obviously, there's two factors that come into play. Being biracial, as far as being African American and Samoan, you really see two different perspectives, because obviously, in the Polynesian community, they're far more when you look at per capita, let's say per 100,000, as far as the population, there's far more LDS members. So, and in the African American community, the community I was raised in, honestly, in my community, I never heard of a LDS person or Mormon or whatever. Never saw a missionary. And if I was a missionary, I wouldn't have come into my community either. But it wasn't familiar until I went to school on the West Coast and actually enrolled in class, and it wasn't even an issue. I didn't know. The thing that always struck me and really hurt me to a degree, if people coming up and asking, "Are you LDS?" Why does that matter? Ask me, am I a good person? Who cares if I'm LDS? Ask me if you want it to be of a religious tone. Ask me, am I Christian? Am I Muslim? Who gives a flying flip if I belong to the LDS church or if I'm raised Baptist? The thing that always startled me is I never walked around and said, "Hey, are you Baptist?" I never asked that question. Never, not once. So, but the people there, oh man, they treated me great. And let's not, when you're a coach, when you're an athlete, and you represent that university, you are treated differently. You just are. And it's like Russell Westbrook coming in representing whomever he was, Houston, right? He's been with quite a few teams, but I can't remember what team he's with at that time. and hearing those words. A Utah Jazz player never heard those words. Never. Thurl Bailey, whether it's Thurl Bailey, whether it's Karl Malone, whether and to go over the great players throughout the Utah Jazz history, whether it's Donovan Mitchell, it doesn't mean it exists. It just means that unless you are a true extremist, those people that play for you, oh, they're not really black. They're not really. They're the good ones. Okay, we got to get rid of that. I never had it. Tom Homo uh, always treated me like a brother. And we do go back, and all the people in the athletic department always treated me with open arms. Now,
Mm.
walking across campus. Oh, hell yeah, you realize you're different. I mean, you realize that you're in the minority. It's easy to be that way. But don't get me wrong, if I walk across, and I've been on a lot of college campuses, if I walk across University of Iowa, yeah,
Yeah,
you feel
yeah.
like a minority. Hell, when you walked across University of Southern California's campus back in the early 80s, you felt like a minority in a whole different way because you were outnumbered by the other minorities. So you were a minority even within the minorities. And you have, I remember Bronco Mendenhall and Robert and I used to use a word that at first, when I first heard it, it was offensive to me. And then I realized exactly what they were saying. They would say you're a double minority. You represent a different class. That's why we need you here. And I'm like, how the hell am I a double minority?
Right.
And then I realized what they were saying as a person of color. And obviously, Robert and I, who's one of my best friends, man, I have great respect for, and Bronco, I have great respect for. You know, I understood him being a minority, but being a member of the church. I was a double minority who crossed all kind of lines because I wasn't a member of the church. Um, I had a couple classes short of a master's in theology, so I had a background from that standpoint. And let's be honest, I know my personality, and I know I'm an aggressive, in your face, dominant type of personality. That
No.
that that may have made me a triple minority. So, uh, but at no point at BYU did I witness this. Now, in the state, there are some places I went recruiting, um, and I wasn't at BYU then. I was at the University of Utah, where we would do a blitz, what's called a blitz, and we would blitz the state. And there are some places that I was assigned to go into. Oh, I could feel some tensions. I could feel it. I'm not going to, and there's a school in Utah County that, not in Provo or Orem, that's a little bit further out, that I could feel like, who is this guy walking in? Um, I
Yeah.
definitely going out to Roy High School. Uh, I didn't, but the people at Roy were totally different. They have a cross section, and it was great to go into Roy High School. I mean, this is where Jim McMahon went, who I knew, and a lot of different athletes. But you really saw a cross section of people that are just different. And then to go up to Park City, where I don't even know if Park City's in Utah. That whole demeanor is
Yeah.
totally different. So it is really a state that has pockets of just some. They don't see people of color very rarely, and when they do, um, a lot of those people of color who they are they're adopted by which I admire because kids of color are the least adopted kids in the country, but they're also raised in a in a society, not in a society, but in surroundings which sometimes aren't appreciative or have an understanding of people of color or what they may have gone through. They're pretty much brought into a society or surroundings and saying this way is the right way, this is the only way, and that's not always healthy for those young people, because they have to have an identity themselves. But
Absolutely, yeah.
my time in Utah County, my time at BYU, my time at Utah, which I think is also important, I never experienced it. Uh, and now we have instances at both universities where it's just circumstances that are, forget them being unacceptable. They're just downright hurtful. They hurt you as a person. I can't imagine, and I don't know what, when I was at BYU, man, they had some great Polynesian, Australian, or players of color, particularly on the men's volleyball team. I'm more worried about the student athlete that's there,
Yeah.
that that is of color, and now when they're walking across that campus, you know, you until you walked in my shoes, don't tell me what it is to be me. So and I'm big on that. Like, I can't tell you what it is to walk across BYU's campus as a member of the LDS Church, or go to a religious outing as a member of the LDS Church. I can tell you what it's like to go as a non-member. I can tell you what it's like to go as a person of color. So I can't tell you what it is to walk across that campus and to be in a majority and tell you how that feels. But
Yeah.
I can tell you what it's like to be a minority. So if you really want to know, just come talk to me, walk with me,
Yeah.
and I need to do the same to understand where you're coming from. And we need to be able to sit down and have an articulate discussion, and we may agree to disagree. That's okay. But if we don't talk about it and we think it's going to change, then we're all ignorant. We're
Yes.
just
K-
ignorant. Go ahead.
Coach
I'm
Guy
sorry.
Holliday joins us. No, you're good. Coach Guy Holliday joins us on the Monty Show. Can Morgan Scalley be the head coach at Utah after what happened with him in the incident involving him and race?
That's a deep question. And I would say this: I'm a person who believes in forgiveness, and I know Morgan Scalley personally. Okay. Morgan, um, when things went sideways for me at Utah, through really on my own point, because I didn't communicate what was going on in my life at that time, being not feeling well and going through some things mentally, which, if I was open about that, as close as I am still to Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley, I'd still be at the University of Utah, I'm sure. And I believe in second chances. I believe in a person's heart. I know his heart. So uh, it'll happen, I believe, at the University of Utah, uh, because the one thing about it, people will always be supportive of people they believe in.
Mm.
Now, across the country, would it happen? I don't know if people can forget. I don't know if people will forgive in this dynamic. But if you ask me at the University of Utah, yeah, and do I think he'll do a good job? I really do. Do I think I know his heart? I do, and I'm sure, if nothing else, when it all transpired, I'm sure, and I know, not I'm sure, because I know him as a person, and I know he had to go inside and do some soul searching,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if nothing else, if you don't emerge a better person from that, then you have an issue that's unfixable. And so I'm sure Morgan will do, if he's given an opportunity, an outstanding job. And I'm sure, that guys, you know, people are more willing to forgive people who they identify with than they are non-identifying. In other words, and don't take this the wrong way,
Wow.
or you can take it any way you like to. Honestly, I the African American community is more likely to forgive an African American who stepped out and did something wrong than, per se, the white community. I'm just being brutally honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the LDS community and the donors at the University of Utah are going to be more likely to forgive Morgan Scalley than they would a person who that they don't know in that direction, that they, because let's be totally honest. We all want to believe that that person that we know, that wasn't them. Okay, that's just human nature. I've
Hmm.
never, if you turn on a TV and just listen to when a young person, and I'm, believe me, right now my city of Baltimore, Maryland is at its all-time low. It's out of control. And every time I follow a story, because my family's still there and they're in that in one of the communities that is under attack, I've never heard a person that was murdered not be a good person.
Yes. Yes.
They all say he's a great person, he was a great guy, because they're family. So we want to see them that way. No matter what they were doing at that time, they were great people, you know. And that's natural for us to defend those that we love and respect. You know, it's natural for me to have a different view of Morgan Scalley because we sat in the same bunker per se as coaches. So in my heart of hearts, I believe it. But if I'm on the outside looking in, I have a different spectrum. So, and I think that's what's difficult for me as a coach. And some people say that, well, you're a person of color. You got, yeah, but I'm a person of color that shared a common goal with a person of the majority. And it's no different than
Mm.
sharing that same common goal with Bronco Mendenhall. It's no different. We're different people, but we shared that same thing. And I see Bronco Mendenhall in a totally different light than people who weren't there. I know how much that man cared about his players. I know how much Kyle Whittingham truly cares, and he gives second chances to so many different people. You know, so it's easy to stand on the outside and judge it, but being there and being with them, fighting tooth and nail for your jobs every week, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you have a different perspective. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, you did spectacularly well as usual. Coach Guy Holliday joins us on the Monty Show. What happened with you at Utah? You know, I think obviously, you know, that was a very difficult exit at Utah for you, and I think the you know all the Twitter stuff and the so just you know if you don't mind, and if you don't want to
Oh,
talk about it, I totally get it. What
no, no,
happened with you at Utah?
I'm very open about what happened. Well, first of all, to my sons and you know, I am a very, even within my own family, I'm a very um when it comes to certain things, I keep things to myself. I only share them with my wife, and I always tell her, okay, we need to keep. But some things had gotten away from me. I didn't have the same energy, so we lost a couple players to transfer portal. Um, you know, we had a couple. I had another player who had some issues, and I was doing everything I could to help him. And then we had two receivers who I recruited that they stepped out and they just did things accused and accused of some crime. So I think on the outside it may appear the guy is losing it. You know, Doc, as most people call me, he's,
Yep.
something's wrong. He's not into it. He's not the same guy who didn't have energy. Well, nobody knew that I had a system in the back of my neck that was pressing on the stem of my brain, and
Mm.
I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know how severe it was at the time, because what are we taught? I've been a gladiator all my life. From the time I was 6, I've been in the game. You're taught, hell, you got to fight through it. You got to get through it. Like you got to battle. So I was battling the best I can. I remember having a conversation with Andy Ludwig, and he was like, "Doc, what's wrong?" Like, we played Washington State, and it was a couple weeks after. He's like, "You're not the same guy," and I'm like, "I don't know." I don't know what's wrong. Maybe it's the COVID thing. Maybe it all took a mental toll, which it did. Uh, it was just a situation where I wasn't healthy. I didn't share it with my sons. I did not know how bad it was at that time until I went and got some real medical advice, and I had it removed. But essentially, I wasn't getting the proper blood flow because this was blocking or was putting pressure right at the base, and it was football related injury from years ago that just developed and it moved in the right time. So, um, Coach Witt made a decision, and I'll say this, I won't say uneducated. He made what he thought was the right decision. And then, I'm really good friends with Witt and Mark Harlan, the AD. So even before they knew, Jeff Rudy, who was a really good friend of mine, as an assistant AD, he knew something was wrong, and he would say, "Doc, something is wrong, man. You're not the same DOC, And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I'm hurting, Rudy. And I would tell Rudy I'm hurting. And finally, they kept my benefits in place, kept me on contract, which most people don't know. All I ever cared about was my players, and so I just wanted to be there for them. But at some point, you got to be there for yourself, and I
Yes.
wasn't there for myself. So after, which will be my second season off this year, I'm fully healthy. I'm ready to go. Whether I'll get back into coaching, I don't know. I tell you what, you get time to spend time with your family and the people that you love, and you realize that you're giving everything to a game, and your family's been there to support you, and you aren't. You're shorting your family all the time, and so I think I may, but to be honest with you, the whole NIL, the transfer portal, I mean, we lost two really good players in Samson Nakua and Brian Thompson, and I've been knowing the Nakuas for years.
Yeah.
When Kai obviously came to BYU, the middle brother who I thought was more talented than Samson or Kai, and so I knew the family, and that hurt me. But I understood because there was some things that he was going through, that he had to address. And he sent me a great email when he signed as a free agent, or reached out to me on social media. So, that, and then losing Brian Thompson, that was two of our top players. And sometimes, the outside influences now. So I mean, you got guys reaching out to kids, you got trainers, you got NLR guys. They need to be doing this, they need to be doing that. Um, and really and truly, you know, both left and both didn't have the career that they thought they would have. I'm sure by leaving. Sampson, who was injured at Utah quite a bit, got injured again at BYU. Always spectacular in the moment. And then Brian Thompson transfers to Arizona State and really almost disappears. And he was our
Yeah.
number one guy at Utah. So, but in talking to both of those kids, um, they were influenced by outside influences, and you always think the grass is greener elsewhere, and sometimes it just isn't.
Yeah, you got to water the
So
grass that you're standing on, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, my mother used to always say, "Don't farm another man's land, because if you're out there farming his land, then your land is dying." Uh,
Yeah.
so it
But
is.
you have too much to give, coach. Yeah, I see, and I don't know you personally, but having covered you and having talked to your players about you, I mean, I just think you have too much to give to those individuals. It would be hard for me, from my perspective anyway. And again, obviously I don't know you personally, but it would be hard to think that you're never going to give to a player again, or that you're never going to coach again. That would be that seems almost unfathomable to me.
That's probably. You sound about like my wife. Uh, I think those who know me, they know that. I always have a saying: I'll never let you cheat the game that saved my life. And so there's a side of me that feels like I'm cheating the game, because I do feel like I have so much to give young people. I this game got me up to cheat. And this game got to get a college degree. And this game always talk about, people always want to know your background as a player. I don't ever talk about my background as a player because that's irrelevant to me. What I always wanted to talk about is the players I coached. Um, Hell, I haven't put a uniform on in over 30, well, what is it? Close to 30
Easy
years
now.
now.
Easy
So,
now.
yeah, yeah. So, but I'm working. I have a facility in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're training kids. We're opening a facility. But even then, I was on a high school sideline just watching a game on Friday. And man, that blood went through me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I got to get out of here." I'm like a cocaine addict right now. I want to get out there and freaking get involved. And I'm watching this kid do this, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me! That's not how you do that." We got to coach you got to coach your kids better. And I even went to a youth league game on Saturday and watched as one of the kids that I've been working with, and I'm listening to the coach just howling and screaming, and I'm just sitting there going, well, if he's doing that, you didn't teach it. Now you can blame him, but you got to figure out a way to teach it, to reach him versus just telling him. That's one thing that we love to do. We love to just tell people what to do, but you reach people. Every person is reached differently. You and I could sit in the classroom and the classroom of life, and we learn totally different,
Yeah.
and or the classroom of math. You can teach me math one way, you can teach you another way. It's the teacher's job to learn how I learn, to learn how Tim learns. And that's what I think I miss and I miss being around the players. I miss the energy, and I miss the competition. Like there's no greater feeling in life to watch another person celebrate victory, and you're there celebrating with them. I can't think of a better feeling, and there's no worse feeling than to lose. And that's
Yeah.
that's what you miss. But you miss the bonds of being in the bunker, like I said with Morgan Scalley, or being in the bunker with Aaron Roderick at BYU, who I know well. You miss those relationships. You miss putting your arm around a kid when you know he's struggling at home, and you can identify because you had those same struggles. And I wish, like right now, I would love to be in the heart of BYU's campus. I would love to talk to the person they borrowed from, and I would love to talk to the athletes, both of color and non-color. um just to say, hey guys, this is, you know we got to talk about this. We can't
Yeah.
keep saying, "Oh, this is the minority." We know this is the minority. Well, let me tell you something. We have a problem right now of people just killing people in our country right now, and we can sit there and say, "Oh, they're in the minority." Yeah, they're in the minority until one of those people affect you personally, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, that's not the minority anymore. That's real life. That is, maybe it's your family member that was held up at gunpoint. Maybe it's your family member that was shot, or maybe, because our big thing is now a call to arms. Maybe and then truly came in your home and you had to shoot someone, and maybe it wasn't an intruder. Maybe it
Yeah.
was saying you made that mistake and you take another person's life. Because that's something I've never been a part of. I've never been in the military. I've never, done those things. But I've had relatives who did serve. I mean, my two father figures in my life were both um, in the one, both served in Vietnam, and one even in Korea, I believe. And you look at the lasting effects of seeing people die and taking other people's lives. That's real, guys. That's no joke, and that's what we're facing here in our society. And we're so busy arguing about damn woke society and all these other names that we have, the far left, the far right. Man, at the end of the day, we're people, and
Yeah.
and get rid of your freaking agendas, and let's talk about the agenda of life. How are we going to make this a better place? And if you do it my way, that's the only way. Well, that way doesn't work. We know that. That's called
Yeah.
that's called dictatorship. We know that doesn't work. We always talk about communist. Well, we know that doesn't work. That doesn't make people happy. People come to this country because they want a second chance. They want an opportunity to exceed, because whether true or not, we're seen as the country that every and right now the bottom line is, I want you to have an opportunity as long as it doesn't take away from my pie. Now, when
Yeah.
you start cutting checks out of my pie, and I don't get to eat, my family don't get to eat, I got no problem with that. That's
Yep.
that's our attitude right now, in my opinion. Sorry about
Yep.
that. Didn't mean to go off on a
No, you're
tangent
good.
there.
Coach, I appreciate you very much. You came on the show on short notice on a very important topic. So good to see you. I am glad you are healthy, and let's not wait so long next time. I look forward to talking to you again.
I look forward to it. I'll be back in Utah. I plan on coming to BYU to a game, and I'm gonna come to University of Utah. Man, I love the state of Utah, and I hate it, but we're ignorant if we put our heads in the sand and can't see the problems. Like or
Yes,
they don't
sir.
exist in my neighborhood. We're ignorant if we do that, and hopefully we'll that there's some good people at BYU, and hopefully they'll fix it. I have great respect for Kevin Wortham and a great amount of respect for Tom Homo. Both of those men I know personally. Both of those men I know will get it right. And but we're sadly mistaken if we don't underbelly. It's lying there, not only at BYU, University of Utah, but in our country right now. And we need to stop. And the thing with what Tom said, we got to have some courage. When you know it's wrong, don't be afraid to speak up. Because if you're not a solution to the problem, you're part of the problem. That's how I was raised in this game. And everything I know about life probably applies in some shape or form to football. But I tell you what, I sure in hell rather be a freaking part of the solution than part of the problem. And those who stand by with closed mouth and closed hands just because they want to survive to get to the next day, eventually it's going to affect your life because you're part of the problem.
All right, Coach. Good to see you, man. Thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Good seeing you. Y'all take care now.
There you go. Guy Holliday, really good conversation. Really appreciate him. Man, I mean, the perspective there, Jake, that you see, and the conversation that you see there. I mean, I just think his words are so important, and I think obviously his perspective is. I mean, when you come from his perspective and his way of life, I think you just look at things differently.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's why we have folks like Guy Holliday on the show. I mean, I think that perspective is the key to conversation. I mean, his perspective is what allows him to have the conversation the way he does, and I think that's incredibly valuable. And I think that, again, we've had this, we're 2 hours, almost 2 hours into the show on this conversation, and I think it warranted it today. And I think, I will definitely be rewatching that interview again, because I just think there's so many bits of gold in there and so many great talking points that it's just incredibly valuable, man. And that's why you have to treasure guys like Guy Holliday, because they just understand it. They've been through certain things, and like you said, they have that perspective that you just can't replicate.
Totally agree with that. Hey, the other thing you can't replicate is the Shamrock Series. We are sending you to see BYU and Notre Dame in Las Vegas, and, it's coming up fast. We're going to be at Barbecue Pit Stop in Lehigh on September 17th, Saturday, September 17th, doing our Football Saturday show, leading you up to kickoff of Oregon and BYU. We're going to all watch the game together, and then at halftime of that game, we're going to draw the winner of that trip for two to see BYU and Notre Dame in Las Vegas. We're giving you 2 nights at the Palms Resort Hotel and Casino, 2 tickets to see BYU and Notre Dame at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and a $250 gas card to get you there. All you have to do to enter is, again, this week and next week, that's it.
Get in.
Go to Barbecue Pit Stop. Any of them in Logan, Lehigh, Layton, St. George, and in Murray. There's a box on the counter. Fill out the slip, drop it in the box, and then we're going to bring all those boxes on September 17th and pull a name. And when you go in there, check out Barbecue Pit Stop for all of their smokers. Man, it just is amazing what they have. No matter what store you go to, like when we were up in Logan, we had a great time, watching. They have a full-time butcher at that store. Mm-hmm. Most of the stores have a meat counter that you can get wings or brisket. Or,
for real.
Yeah, absolutely. All of the seasonings at Barbecue Pit Stop, incredible. Anything you need, check them out online, bbqpitstop.com, bbqpitstop.com. Check them out. All of that stuff that you need. And of course, our entire program with the BYU Notre Dame drive away to see the Shamrock Series in Las Vegas is brought to you by our good friend Devery Davis at Academy Mortgage.
Devery Davis with the Davis Lending Team, powered by Academy Mortgage. All right, first-time home buyers, listen up. This one's for you. There's a huge misconception on how much it takes to buy a house. Is it 20%? Is it 10%? Is it 15%? The answer will surprise you. There's 4 mortgages in the United States. 2 of them require no down payment. 2 require very minimal down payment. Out of that down payment, there's lots of places to get it from. There's state funds, county funds, city funds, lots of ways to buy a house, no money down. When I was 18, I got out of high school. I actually bought a brand new house, no money down, never regretted it. If you have questions, give me a shout. Glad to walk you through it. Have a great one.
Devery Davis, 801-543-9666. Devery Davis, NMLS number 278545. Devery Davis and Academy Mortgage are equal housing lenders. The biggest story in sports this morning, I think probably there's little doubt that it is this BYU Duke volleyball situation. If you're just tuning into the show, Coach Guy Holliday joined us. Great conversation with Coach. He said that while he was at BYU, he never had an incident. Never saw anything personally like what happened at BYU volleyball on Friday night. Just a really good conversation. We'll have that up on the channel here at YouTube and on our podcast after the show, so make sure you check that out.